What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another GGF video, and today I'll be doing another motherboard overview, and this time it is the ASRock Taichi AQUA. Now you notice I said Taichi AQUA. This time ASRock, because I think they've gone a bit of an overhaul on their naming scheme. A lot of their boards now fall under the Taichi family. Now for me, I'm a bit 50-50 on that. I did like how ASRock had their Taichi lineup. They had their OCF, they had the AQUA, and so on. Now even I've got over here, I'll be doing a video on the OCF as well, this one here. They've tied this one into the Taichi lineup as well. You can see you got the Taichi cogs on the side, but this is the OCF. Now OCF was their OC formula. It was never in the Taichi range. And then over here, we have the sort of the purebred Taichi, which I'll be doing a video on this as well, because this board I think is really good value. I think at the moment it's $499 US at Newegg, and it comes with 32 gigabytes of core center memory. So that's not bad. This could be a potential ROG hero killer. It's got a lot of similar features, and it is much more affordable as well. So I'll be doing a video on that one. But yeah, tying everything into that Taichi theme, my only concern about that is they've got that very aggressive styling with those cogs, that steampunk setup that I did like before it was just on the Taichi. So if you didn't like that aggressive styling, you could go with the OCF, you could go with one of the extreme boards, which was, funnily enough, the ASRock extreme boards were more of their mid-tier, and it wasn't like the ROG extreme. The ASRock extreme was more mid-tier, and then you had the AQUA, which had its own styling, but now everything has this cog design, so I'm not too sure about that. Now, with that out of the way, let's talk about this new AQUA, because we didn't see one in Z790, the last one was Z690, so we have a whole new refresh design. And the first thing you might be thinking, well, where is the full coverage monoblock? Now that has gone. I think that's good and bad, because before you were limited to a custom loop only. You had to run a custom loop. Like, you could potentially take the whole block off and you could run it just on its own. The VRMs will be exposed. You can do that most of the time because the VRMs are built pretty damn good these days. This one here has 28. I've got the full spec. It's 28.1211. So 28, and I think that is the second highest VRM design I've seen apart from the Godlike. So that's pretty insane on that. It's even more than the ROG Extreme. And the difference this time is there's no monoblock, so you could run this with an all-in-one cooler. You do get the VRM block is now a water block. You've got your in and your out. I don't think it makes a difference with VRM blocks. There's probably no sort of directional flow. It probably doesn't even have a thin stack. It just goes straight in and then straight out. So they've ditched the monoblock. This is now done by AlphaCool, which is pretty good. I've always liked AlphaCool. Good to see AlphaCool now moving on to their motherboard or partnering with motherboard brands. I just want to take this off because you may have noticed that this VRM block does go over the M.2. Now, once again, I'm always 50-50 on running the water block over your primary M.2 slot, because hey, if you need to change that, you're going to have to drain your loop. But something interesting what ASRock have done here, instead of having to remove this whole, I would say for you guys, it looks like a C, this whole C-shaped design, you can just pull this off like that. And now you've just got access to sort of, I would say, a third of that block. But as you can see, you've got the port there. It's got the mating port here. It's got a couple of O-rings in there. Now that would cause the system to leak, whether it's running or not. As soon as you could probably have it sitting on a bench like this. If it had water in, fine, you can pull it off quickly. It's going to be right. But if you had this filled up in a system in a loop and you pulled that apart, it would just, water would just, coolant would just go everywhere. So if you ever had to swap your SSD for a certain reason, just bear in mind that that is pretty much a live loop. I think the only different thing they could have done, if they could have, was try to get AlphaCool. I've actually tightened that too much. Try to get AlphaCool to engineer something like a quick disconnect, like a QDC. So when you pop that out, that would seal itself. But in saying that, this would have to seal itself. They would both have to seal because you'd have coolant in here, you'd have coolant in here. So it would be pretty cool if that could be sealed when you pop that off. But in saying that, you're not going to be doing that very often. How often are you changing your NVMe SSDs, especially your primary one? You normally do it when you upgrade your system anyway, but just keep that in mind that if you do ever go down the route of needing to swap that, it is the one whole unit. But very nice design. As you can see, the aesthetics are a little bit different than previously, but they have gone with the silver styling. But another thing that I feel with this board, it's now sort of moved into the mainstream segment. Before, the AQUA was a very limited run. I think there was 1,000 or so, It had your little number plaque on there. They did some limited runs for YouTubers. I always had my GGF edition there, but now I think that it's been brought into the Taichi lineup. It's just going to be a standard run board. To me, I'm a bit sad to see that. I really liked it how it was always a limited run. It just made it that little bit special. It does have that really nice backplate. I do like backplates on boards. It just gives it that premium look, and definitely this is a premium board because I'll cover the price a little bit later on. And then once again, we've got that, once again, Taichi has been moved on to this board as well. And then we have back VRM cooling. I can see those thermal pads at the back. Let's spin this around so you can see it. So yeah, kind of different how we're used to. I would say the aesthetics are definitely different. It's not as futuristic. It looks sort of, I would say it's going back in date. I'm not saying it's a bad look, but it definitely is something different. But yeah, one thing you can do, you can run this air cooled if you want. You can run this with an all-in-one cooler. It's not restricted to a custom loop only. And you might also notice that I think the last 2 generations, they've had the screens up here, and I think one of them had the screen down below. So there's no screen at all on the Aqua now. Do get the power reset controls over here, which is still, I would expect that on this board. I would expect power and reset controls on a board, say $500 and upwards. I'm just looking at the Taichi. Yep, the Taichi is $499, and you got power and reset, and you also have your Q or post LED display. So I would expect 500. Anything less, I would like to see it, but it just depends whether they will put that feature on. Now, another sort of, I would say a pretty head turning point on this board, if you saw this at Computex, is the rear I/O. Now, I want to get this out of the way first. As you can see, there is no Type A. So we have 4, 10, 4, 5, and then these two down below are Thunderbolt 4. So no Type A. Now, I covered this in my Computex coverage. I said this will be good if ASRock implements it right, and unfortunately, I don't think they did. The only way you can get USB Type A is they've thrown one of these in the box, which is obviously a dual USB-A to A internal one. So you whack this in the a header here. Now, mind you, if you're using both of these, say you have a couple of fan controllers, anything else that requires these two, you are tough out of luck. You can't install this, and this normally just goes in your slot like this. It is a bit ugly. Now, I think for what this board is and how premium it is, they should have thrown in some other adapters. Now, you can buy plenty of Amazon adapters that can convert, say, one of these into 2, one of these into 4, anything you like. I think they should have hit up an OEM, and they could have themed it to the Taichi board, even if it was a little block that could sort of protrude out, not interfere with the others, but protrude out and just give you, I would say, 3 or 4 USB Type A, because honestly, I do think a lot of USB-A are wasted, especially 10 gigabit, even 5 gigabit. If you're using like a keyboard, mouse, anything like that that doesn't need high bandwidth, it's just a waste. So it'd be good if you could convert 110 into 4 Type A. That'd be a keyboard, mouse, any other dongles, you're done. And then you got all the freedom for all the other high-speed ones, and then the Thunderbolt for your other devices. But I just think the implementation from ASRock was a little bit slack just to throw in one of these, because hey, I think you got these like 20 years ago with motherboard accessories. So to throw that in, I think is a little bit of a shame. Even another thing they could have done, these two USB front panel Type C, these are both 20. Haven't seen a motherboard that has two 20s. Normally they're a 20 and a 10. They could have had a special adapter that you could route this around to the back that gave you, say, 4 of these and connected into one of these, because the odds of a case having 2 of these are pretty rare. And then you would save up these. Most cases and most builds are going to use 2 of these before you use 2 of these. So to give you an adapter that could route one of these into the back with 4 of these, I think would have been a better choice than using these and then throwing in this adapter. But that's just my thoughts on that. Anyway, I just want to move on. I don't want this to go too long. The board is LGA 1851. Of course, the new Intel. We've all seen the performance. I'm not going to touch base on that. I'm just talking about these boards, not really doing a review on the performance, but I guess the performance wasn't as what everyone expected. It wasn't up there to what we were thinking, but hey, it is early days. I remember when the latest AMD platform came out, the performance wasn't there, but with the latest Windows update, it has had quite a hefty boost. So who knows, something might change. Already covered the power delivery, 28 phases. It is an absolute monster. I can see it wraps all the way around here, all the way over here, and that is insane. We have 4 DIMM slots. Now, I don't think ASRock are doing an Aqua OC. They normally do the Aqua normal with 4 DIMMs and then the Aqua OC with 2 DIMMs. Obviously 2 DIMMs is going to be better overclocking, but hey, who is out there to sort of go that niche to only require the 2 DIMMs. If you do require the 2 DIMMs, they do have the OCF. If you're really mad on wanting to run 2 DIMMs only, they have the OCF, and I'll cover that in its own video a little bit later. Up to 256 gigabytes support. That's interesting. I'm not sure if that's a typo. All the ROG boards I've looked at do 192. That's of course 4x48. I'm not sure how ASRock got 4 sticks to do 256. And that's up to 9600 mega transfers. And of course it supports your new CU DIMM. Now we all know that is the latest variant of the UDIMM, and it has the built-in clock driver for better stability. Now I recently did a Z890 launch build, and I ran these 82 or 84. These are 82, and I hit 82 straight away, XMP2, no worries, done, and I was ready to go. So that worked straight out of the box. I didn't have time to test anymore. And this is the Trident Z5 CK, CK being the clock driver for the model. Now, I do like this kit. Obviously for a board like this, it doesn't really match that well. Maybe something for like the OCF where it's all black, but at the moment, G-Skill have these in the piano black, but I'm assuming they're gonna have RGB and probably other colors as well. Now, ASRock have something new called Memory OC Shield. That's a little bit tricky to say, but apparently this is just a EMI shield to help with Memory OC. I haven't tested this yet, so it'll be interesting. I think all the companies with this new launch have something new to do with memory, so it'll be interesting to see how well that works. Moving down to the slots, so we have 3 physical by 16s, 1, 2, 3, and don't be fooled, they're not all 16 electrically. The first 2 are Gen 5, which is pretty sweet to see, and the top one will run at 16, or they will do 8 or 8 if you're occupying both. And then the third is locked at by 4, and that is a Gen 4, not a Gen 5. Now, let's move over to the M.2, which everyone wants to know about to see how much you can jam in. And you can also see how much you are going to lose when you fill up all of these slots, because unless you're going something like a workstation board or a Threadripper, you are always going to lose something when it comes to these consumer boards. Now we've got some nice pads on these. There's also another one here. Another thing I want to mention is everyone's doing this, or I think ASRock is actually the last to catch up. We have the EZ release here, just a latch here. That'll unlock your primary card instead of having to reach in and push the clip. We have another EZ release here. This one goes this way, which is quite interesting, but then on the OC formula, it pushes the other way for the one over here. So this one pushes in, which is a little bit tricky, because if you're trying to do it, I would say out would be easier than pushing it in, but on this board, it goes out to lift it up. So I'm not sure why they're different, but anyway, you're probably only going to do this once. Push it in and then out it goes. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I nearly forgot about that one. So we have, let's see, 2 Gen 5. So that'll be Gen 5. That'll be Gen 5, no doubt, because it's got the back heatsink, and then the remaining 4 Gen 4. Now what we lose, I'm just going to read this directly off the spec site, and if you are wanting to fill out all of these, no matter what motherboard you have, if you want to populate all your M.2s, I would check out just go to the specs, look at the M.2 or the PCI Express options, and have a look and see what will interfere with what it normally has asterisks telling you. But for this one, if M.2 is occupied, PCIe, so M.2 I'm assuming is going to be this one. If M.2 2 is occupied, PCIe 1 will be downgraded to 8, so this will run at 8 instead of 16. And PCIe 2, this one will be downgraded to 4. So you're going 8, 4 if you are running this one, and I'm assuming all of the others. So that's actually not too bad. You're just going to lose the full 16 by that, which I think is fine. I will have to see what the 5090s are like in their lane bandwidth to see if that's going to saturate the Gen 5 by 8. And then this one here, as long as you're not running anything that needs more than 4, you will have essentially 8, 4, and then 4. This one's untouched, and then you can run all of these 6, and that's the only thing that will be limited. I actually think on the Taichi, it was a little bit, I wouldn't say a little bit better. This one still had 6, but I think you just lost, because this slot's already 4, I think this one stayed at 16. You lost this one, but then you could run all the remaining 6. So it's always a trade-off between something. All the boards are different on most of the brands. I have not seen a board that you can run all of your M.2. Even on the ROG Extreme, you are going to have to sacrifice something. Now, one area that I think ASRock has redesigned is the way their M.2s mount. There's no more screws. I don't think they had this on any of their previous platforms, but now we can just drop that straight in like that. This one, if I can get that in there properly, spin that one around. Awesome. We don't have to worry about any of those little screws. And I think ASRock is the last company to, that's the wrong way. I think ASRock is the last company to actually implement this. And now in terms of actually the whole heatsink here not being like a Q release, a lot of other brands have been doing the primary one. Some other brands do this one as a Q release. Now it's weird. This one is all fixed by screws, but on the OC Formula and also on the Taichi, this one here, if I do this one is a quick release. So I kind of reached out to another vendor about why they weren't doing that. And the reasoning for that is it's hard to get even pressure over such a large area of M.2. So if there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or if there's 4 here, I've seen one board even has 5 under here from ASRock. If you just have 1 point here and then 1 latch here, it's very hard to get that even pressure, although this isn't screwed down yet. It's very hard, if I use this one that is locked in, very hard, there's a bit of a rock there to get the even pressure over all of those M.2s for adequate cooling. Instead, it's easier or better cooling to go with the actual 4 screws, and then you're going to know you're going to get that even pressure. So that's why that other company has done it like this, and I'm assuming that's why ASRock has done it like this on this board. But then in saying that, I'm not sure why they would have done it on this board and also the Taichi, but that's just how they have done it on this board. Now, another thing I'm glad to see ASRock are finally doing is they're adding some temp sensors over here. So just those 2 little prongs there, and they actually give you 3 in the accessories kit. I'll just open this one now. Now these ones are just the standard push in, 2 pins, and these ones are basically for case temp. You could stick this one in the front, one in the exhaust, one in the top, but these can also be used for things like water cooling loops. If you have a spare G-quarter thread, you can just run, say like a Bits Power or even Alpha Cool do them. Just feed a temp sensor into your loop, it just screws in, and then you can plug that into there, and that'll give you a readout of your water temp, which is really good to see. And I think on all their previous boards, they actually never had these, and now they give you 3. Now moving on to the rear I/O, I've mentioned a little bit earlier before, but I didn't cover everything else. So you do have the 2 Thunderbolt 4, no Thunderbolt 5, which is a little bit of a shame. I'm not sure if we even need that yet, but some of the more higher end boards, I wouldn't say more higher end boards, but some of the boards in this high end range do have the Thunderbolt 5. You do have 4 USB 3 Gen 2, so they're the 10 gig. So they're the first 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. They're the 10 gig. These 4 are the 5 gig. We have 10 gig LAN, which is good, and 5 gig LAN. Now that's the most I've seen. On the ROG Extreme, it's 10 and 2.5. I'm not sure what it is on the Godlike. So that's pretty good. We have Wi-Fi 7, of course, and that also supports the higher 320 megahertz channel bandwidth. And this is the antenna. One more thing I think that ASRock could have done with such their, I wouldn't say now limited run board, but with such their special board, like this is their, this is sort of what they're known for, the AQUA board. They could have done something a little bit with the antenna. I think it's just the stock standard job that comes with most of the boards, or I think all of their boards. They could have maybe made it white or something a little bit different to go with the board, just to spruce it up a little bit. Front panel connectors, I mentioned these briefly before, that you actually do get 2 20 gig, which is nice to see. I'm not sure what even cases. I just covered the 9000D can take 2, but in saying that, the 9000D has a built-in I/O hub, so you only need 1 for the 9000D, and that'll run everything on the ports. So that kind of excludes this, but any cases that have dual USB-C that can do the 20, this will run it. And then for the USB standard 3.2 Gen 1, which is this one here, we have a right angle here, they will do the 3.2 Gen 1 ports, and that gives you 2 for 4 Type A as well for that. So for the price, you're looking at $999 US. That is bang on $1,000. I want to know your thoughts. I know the ROG Extreme is the exact same price, and I think the MSI Godlike is a little bit more at $1,200 or something. Don't quote me on that, but it's similar to that. So I think those 3 top dogs are all around the same price, except for the MSI Godlike is $200 more. I know on the Godlike you do get a heap of features, but I'm not sure if everyone is going to use all of those. But I think that's it on this video. Just a few things I just wanted to mention about the monoblock has been removed. We now have AlphaCool has done the design on the block here. I will be doing a build on this one. I've got a sick case coming that's going to match, and it'll be really nice to tie this all in. And of course, I will go with AlphaCool for the rest of the gear. I'm just trying to work out now how I would loop this, being so close together here, and then having your CPU here with two ports here. It's going to be very close and very cluttered, but I'm sure I will work something out. But anyway, I think that's it. I want to thank ASRock for sending this board to look out. I've got these others here, the OCF, the Taichi, and I'll check those out soon. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.